The world watched with bated breath as India and Pakistan, two nuclear-armed nations, locked horns in a dangerous standoff on May 6, 2025. This escalation of hostility stemmed from a terrorist attack in Pahalgam, Indian-administered Kashmir, on April 22, 2025, which India blamed on Pakistan-based militants. In response, India launched Operation Sindoor, a series of airstrikes targeting alleged terrorist camps within Pakistan. The situation remained tense as both sides exchanged heated rhetoric and mobilized their military forces. The international community, fearing a catastrophic escalation, frantically called for restraint and dialogue. The events of May 6, 2025 served as a stark reminder of the volatile nature of the India-Pakistan relationship and the ever-present danger of a nuclear confrontation. The shadow of the 1971 war, the last time these two nations engaged in full-blown conflict, hung heavy in the air. This time, however, the stakes were immeasurably higher. Both nations possessed nuclear arsenals capable of unimaginable destruction. The possibility of a miscalculation, a misstep on the tightrope of diplomacy, filled the world with dread. The United Nations Security Council convened for an emergency session, with world leaders appealing for calm and urging both sides to step back from the brink. On April 22, 2025, the serene beauty of Pahalgam, a popular pilgrimage destination nestled in the Himalayas, was shattered by a horrific act of terrorism. A group of Hindu pilgrims, on their way to the sacred Amarnath cave shrine, came under a brutal attack. Gunmen opened fire indiscriminately, turning a journey of faith into a scene of carnage. The attack sent shockwaves across India, with the death toll reaching 26, a grim testament to the brutality of the assault. Public anger simmered, demanding justice for the victims, and a firm response to the perpetrators of this heinous crime. The attack struck at the heart of India's sense of security, its vulnerability to terrorism, and its unresolved issues with its neighbor. Indian intelligence agencies claim to have irrefutable evidence linking the attack to a Pakistan-based terrorist group operating with the support of elements within the Pakistani establishment. The accusations further inflamed tensions between the two countries, pushing them closer to the edge of a precipice. In the aftermath of the Pahalgam attack, India vowed a strong and decisive response. On May 6, 2025, India launched Operation Sindoor, a series of airstrikes targeting what it claimed were terrorist training camps located deep inside Pakistan-controlled territory. Indian fighter jets, armed with precision munitions, roared across the border, striking 9 targets in total. Among the locations targeted were Kotli, Muzaffarabad, and Bahawalpur, areas believed to house training facilities and logistical hubs for terrorist organizations. The operation, meticulously planned and executed under a veil of secrecy, caught Pakistan off guard. The element of surprise was crucial for India, allowing it to achieve its objectives and minimize the risk of escalation. However, the strikes sparked immediate outrage in Pakistan, with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif denouncing them as an act of war and vowing a befitting response. The situation escalated rapidly, with both sides mobilizing troops along the line of control, the de facto border in Kashmir. The fog of war often obscures the human cost of conflict. While India maintained that its strikes were targeted solely at terrorist infrastructure, reports from Pakistan painted a grim picture of civilian casualties. Hospitals in Pakistan's Punjab province reported an influx of injured, many suffering from shrapnel wounds and burns. The most heart-wrenching accounts came from Bahawalpur, where a mosque was struck during Fajr prayers, resulting in multiple fatalities and injuries. The images of bloodied prayer rugs and the mangled remains of the mosque's minaret sparked international condemnation and fueled anti-India sentiment in Pakistan. Pakistan claimed at least 26 civilians, including women and children, were killed in the Indian airstrikes. The stories of loss and suffering underscored the indiscriminate nature of war, where even the most vulnerable are not spared. The focus shifted to de-escalation, with diplomatic efforts intensifying to prevent the situation from spiraling further out of control. Section 5. Pakistan responds, a nation under attack. Pakistan, reeling from the Indian airstrikes, found itself at a crossroads. The nation was united in its condemnation of the attacks, with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif vowing a befitting response. The Pakistani military was placed on high alert, with troops deployed along the line of control and the international border with India. Pakistan claimed to have shot down 2 Indian fighter jets that had violated its airspace, capturing 1 pilot. While India acknowledged the loss of 1 aircraft, it maintained that the pilot had ejected safely and demanded his immediate and unconditional release. The Pakistani government launched a diplomatic offensive, reaching out to world leaders and international organizations, highlighting what it called India's naked aggression and seeking support for its position. The nation, united in its anger and sense of betrayal, braced itself for a prolonged confrontation with its arch-rival. Section 6. The world reacts, calls for restraint and dialogue. As news of the escalating conflict between India and Pakistan spread, the international community reacted with alarm and concern. World leaders, fearing a catastrophic escalation between 2 nuclear-armed neighbors, issued urgent calls for restraint and dialogue. The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency meeting, urging both sides to de-escalate the situation and engage in meaningful talks. The United States, China, Russia, and the European Union, recognizing the gravity of the situation, issued statements urging both India and Pakistan to exercise restraint and engage in dialogue to prevent a further escalation of hostilities. They emphasized the need for a peaceful resolution of the conflict, stressing the importance of dialogue and diplomacy in resolving disputes between nations. The international community also expressed concern over the humanitarian impact of the conflict, particularly the plight of civilians living along the line of control who were caught in the crossfire. The global response to the India-Pakistan crisis highlighted the interconnectedness of the world and the shared responsibility to prevent conflicts from escalating into full-blown wars, especially when nuclear-armed states are involved. Section 7. Life on the edge, civilians in the crossfire. While the world watched with bated breath as tensions escalated between India and Pakistan, the human cost of the conflict became increasingly apparent in the lives of ordinary people living along the line of control, the de facto border dividing the disputed region of Kashmir. Caught in the crossfire, these communities faced the brunt of the escalating tensions, their lives upended by fear and uncertainty. As both sides exchanged artillery fire and mortar shells rained down on their homes, villages along the line of control transformed into ghost towns. Fearing for their lives, thousands of people fled their homes, seeking refuge in makeshift shelters, government buildings, or with relatives in safer areas. Schools were shut down, businesses remained closed, and the streets were deserted, the silence punctuated by the distant thud of explosions. The conflict exacerbated their plight, cutting off supply lines and making it treacherous for humanitarian organizations to reach them. The stories of displacement, fear, and loss faced by civilians on both sides of the border served as a stark reminder of the true cost of conflict. Section 8. The Nuclear Precipice: Future Implications and Risks. The events of May 6, 2025 served as a chilling reminder of the precarious nature of peace in South Asia. The India-Pakistan conflict, a long-standing and deeply entrenched rivalry, took on a new dimension of danger with the specter of a nuclear confrontation looming larger than ever before. The world watched nervously as 2 nuclear-armed neighbors engaged in brinkmanship, the consequences of miscalculation potentially catastrophic. The international community recognized the gravity of the situation, intensifying diplomatic efforts to de-escalate the crisis and prevent a slide into a wider conflict. The focus shifted to bringing both sides back to the negotiating table, emphasizing dialogue and confidence-building measures as the only viable path towards a lasting solution. The risk of an accidental nuclear exchange, while still considered low, remained a terrifying possibility. The heightened tensions, coupled with the fog of war and potential for miscalculation, created an environment ripe for unintended escalation. The world hoped that lessons would be learned, diplomacy would prevail, and the 2 nuclear-armed neighbors would find a path towards a more peaceful and secure future.